So yeah. Hey guys, welcome to the day 4 of webinar on Python for machine learning. So a quick recap on what we have seen till now. So yesterday in the session we have covered pandas. So I've spent some good time on pandas because I felt that pandas is actually like very important package and helps you in a lot of pre-processing. So one of the significant and important steps in any machine learning pipeline is pre-processing. So you need to spend some good time in analyzing the data and understand like what are the necessary fields and what are the unnecessary fields. How can you reduce the dimensionality of the data so that your machine learning algorithms will actually perform accurately. So we have spent some good time on pandas and we have done some basic hands-on exercise also. So right now we'll just quickly jump into the next package that I'm going to discuss. But we are not going to do any hands-on on this particular package. We'll just directly jump into the machine learning and then we use this package in order to apply ML algorithms like linear regression, logistic regression, clustering, and other stuff. So one of the important packages that Python supports is actually a SciPy, okay, scientific Python package. This is having a good number of modules for all your scientific programming, for example, like linear algebra, calculus, and solving differential equations, and signal processing stuff and all can be done using the SciPy. So SciPy also is extended and we have something called as a scikit-learn. It's a purely machine learning package in Python. So all the algorithms that we are going to study as part of this particular series, the algorithms are actually implemented in Python. We have it ready-made available for us using this package. So what we need is like, we have to do all the pre-processing, and also we should understand like how to call these particular ML models using scikit-learn package. And each and every ML model will have a lot of parameters. So what are these actually parameters? We will see when we are discussing the ML algorithms. So scikit-learn is a ready-made package where all our machine learning algorithms are implemented and are given to us as functions. So what we do in our execution is that we just make our data ready and then we use scikit-learn package, call the necessary function, and see how our ML model is actually working. So depending on the output that we get, we can still tweak or change some parameters. And depending on your parameter setting, your accuracy might increase or decrease. So we don't code anything like from the base. So for example, a logistic regression, for example, linear regression, we have seen a regression formula, right? So we don't exactly code everything. Whereas in scikit-learn, what we have is like a linear regression model is readily available. We just call it, pass the necessary attributes and parameters, and scikit-learn will do everything for us. So scikit-learn is one of the important packages, and the cheat sheet is also available in Google. You can just do it. If not, I'll be sharing it with you later. So Matplotlib and Seaborn we have already seen. Basically, visualization plays a very, very important role in our pipeline because we need to understand the patterns in the data. So visualization is very, very important. So for that, we'll be using MATLAB and Seaborn, but Seaborn, I didn't touch upon Seaborn much. Matplotlib is more than sufficient for our series to follow. If you're really interested in Seaborn, yeah, you can take a look, or we can do a separate session on Seaborn later. So yeah, finally, so the day has come to start our machine learning part. So let's just jump into it straight away. Okay. So machine learning has become a very big buzzword, right? People are talking about machine learning all the time, and many companies, you can see that all of them are saying that, yeah, we have some projects in machine learning. We are working on machine learning and stuff. So can just think of some real-time examples. Okay. Think of some real-time examples. So like I have given you earlier in the last 2 sessions. So one example that I've given you is a custom made ads for the customers. So depending on the user patterns, depending on the user interest, how can you suggest ads to him? Okay. So that's one thing. And second thing is like, there are many applications For example, even including your Google Maps is a machine learning model. Your Google Assistant is a machine learning model. So whatnot, everything that most of the things that you do or see in your day-to-day life, most of the applications are actually using one or the other way. They are using machine learning models. Okay, so every machine learning algorithm consists of these three basic steps. Okay, so the first one is the representation. Okay, second one is the evaluation, and third one is the optimization. Okay, so what do you mean by this is I'll just give a quick example which I generally give in my classes, and which is very like pretty straightforward to understand. Okay, let's imagine there is a kid, a small kid. Okay, um, who's no trying to understand various let's say fruits. Okay, trying to understand the fruit names. Okay, so what do we generally do is like we show him a particular fruit, and we tell him that, okay, see, because this is having so and so color, and this is having so and so size, and this is having so and so texture, you can call this fruit as apple. Okay, so similarly I will also say that, okay, because this particular fruit is having another texture and another color, I will call that as, let's say, pineapple. Okay, so like that, whenever we are trying to teach a kid, what happens is like we will try to explain him what we are trying to teach with respect to some attributes. We show him these are the attributes, and if a particular fruit is having these attributes, you can call that fruit as apple. That's how we are teaching a kid. Now the kid is actually like, in the first attempt itself, he may not understand. Okay, he may not understand, or he may understand, but next time you show him the same fruit and ask him like, what is this fruit, he might give you a wrong answer. Okay, so when he gives you a wrong answer, what you do as a parent is that you try to train him, showing him the same fruit multiple times again and again, right? That's what you're trying to do. So when you keep doing the training on the kid, one fine day you show him the fruit, you ask him what is that fruit name, he will quickly give you the answer. Okay, so in this particular example, what I have told you is that when we are trying to teach a kid about the attributes of a particular item and telling him that if these are the attributes, this is the fruit name, that is called as the representation. Okay, that is called as the representation. Now once I teach the kid, then I am showing him a different fruit, and a fruit, and then I'm asking him, okay, because you have learned, now tell me what is the name of this particular fruit. So what am I trying to do is like, it is like I'm trying to evaluate the kid, um, to see whether he has understood the differences between the fruits. Okay, so I'm going to ask him like, what is his name, what is the fruit name. Then he might give you a good correct answer, he might give you a incorrect answer, right? So basically I'm trying to evaluate. Okay, so once I do the evaluation, let's say my evaluation has failed, that means the kid was unable to differentiate the fruit. Then what do I do? I'll basically try to train him again on the same thing, maybe trying it in a different approach. Okay, so that is called as optimization. So please understand, in this particular example, always whenever you are training your kid, or always you're trying to train your model, okay, what do we generally do is like, first I have to represent the model. Okay, represent in the sense like, how am I going to do? Okay, we are just telling like, okay, this is if these are the things that are there, so you have to call this one as this, like that. We are just uh, giving some kind of attributes, and we are trying to explain, okay, if this is the representation, this is what is the answer, like that. We are trying to represent the information. Okay, so once that is done, we are trying to evaluate our model. Okay, we are trying to evaluate our model because the training is done right now. I want to see whether my training was good enough for the model to predict something in the future or not. So if the model was trained well, then my evaluation will be successful. If my evaluation fails, then what I have to do is like, I need to see where I have gone wrong, try to modify my approach in training it again. So keep training it in different possible ways, such that one fine day my evaluation is always 100% correct. Okay, so any machine learning model will have this particular general flow. Okay, so now let's talk technical. I have given you that example to make you understand that, see, machine learning is nothing but, teaching somebody repeatedly again and again the same process, so that whenever he sees a new data, he should be in a position to give an estimate of an answer. That is what we are expecting from a machine learning model. Okay, so the general workflow of a machine learning model will be something like this. Okay, so this is my training data. Okay, and this is my model that I'm trying to create. So once I build a model, okay, my machine learning algorithm keeps running. So whenever I get a new input data, my machine learning algorithm should be in a position to take a step to predict something. Okay, now when I predict something, that prediction might be correct, prediction might be wrong. Depending on that, I will evaluate my model, and depending on the evaluation output, I'm going to retrain my model again. So this particular cycle keep going like that continuously till my model performs accurately. Okay, so another beautiful example that I can give you is like a house broker. Okay, let's say I'm a particular person new to this city and I want to buy a house here. So what I do is, like, I approach a particular broker and I ask him, okay, I want to buy a house in so and so area with so and so features and so land area and square feet and other stuff and all. I'll give him all the details and I'll ask him, okay, can you tell me, like, what will be the approximate cost that will be incurred to me to buy a house in this particular locality? So let's say he might quote a price like, let's say 80 lakhs. Okay, he might quote a price like 80 lakhs. So based on that, what will I do is, like, okay, I'll buy the house there. But what I observe is that I buy the house not for 80 lakhs, but for 1 crore from the builder. Okay. Because when I talked to the builder, builder was saying that no, 80 lakhs was an old price. It was an old price because of the inflation. Now it has gone up to 1 crore. So I'm buying it for 1 crore. Okay. So next time the same house broker comes to me and he asks me, like, sir, for how much did you buy the house? I'm telling him, boss, you told me 80 lakhs, but I have bought it for 1 crore. Okay. So what the broker will do now, he tries to update himself, right? He tries to update himself. See, what is the role of the house broker here? A house broker is a person who might have seen or who might have been selling so many houses in different localities for a very long duration, right? That means over a period of time, he is trying to develop knowledge on what he knows, right? So when somebody comes and asks him a question saying that, okay, I want to buy a house in so and so locality with so and so features, he can be in a position to predict what will be the approximate cost of the house for that features. Okay, but that prediction might be true, might not be true. There might be some kind of a deviation. Okay, because it is not always the same cost that whatever broker says is the final one, right? Builder will be the final person who will be quoting the final price. So there might be a little deviation. Okay, now whenever there is such deviation, okay, if the broker comes to know, he will understand that, okay, maybe because of the inflation, the prices have gone up in so and so locality, so let's update my model. Okay, so let's update my knowledge. So in this particular example, what you can correlate with this particular diagram is that, okay, the knowledge that the broker is having is nothing but the training data. Okay, over a period of time, he collected a lot of training data about the houses. So he developed a model. He developed a model in his mind that, okay, if these are the features and this is the locality, this might be the approximate cost of the house. So he developed a model. Okay, so when a new customer comes to him and asks him, okay, with these particular features, what will be the approximate cost, he tries to make a prediction. Okay, he tries to make a prediction. Now that prediction which he has made, for example, like 80 lakhs, might be true, might not be true. Okay, there might be a little more deviation there. Okay, so he evaluates the model. Okay, and he understood that, okay, in that locality, because of the inflation, there was a 20 lakh hike in the house prices. So he'll understand and he'll give it to his particular knowledge and he'll retrain his model. Okay, that's what exactly we are also trying to do here in the general workflow of a machine learning algorithm. Okay, so we initially have some kind of a knowledge that we have, like training data. We build a model. Whenever a new input comes, we try to predict, and the prediction might be true, might not be true. Based on that, we will retrain our model continuously till my model reaches a good accuracy. Okay, what do I mean by a good accuracy is that, okay, the deviation that we are talking about here, for example, quoted price was, I mean, a broker's price was 80 lakhs and then builder's price was 1 crore. But what if the broker itself has told that the house cost is around 95 lakhs and the builder has quoted only 1 crore? The deviation was only 5 crores. Okay. So what is our objective in this particular general flow is that we want to reduce the deviation, okay, between the prediction that has happened and between the actual cost. Okay. So that's what exactly we are trying to do in most of the general machine learning models. Okay. So hope you got a good idea of like what is the general workflow of the machine learning, right? Now with that understanding, we will just see like what are all the different types of machine learning algorithms that we have. Okay. So first one is called as a supervised machine learning models. Okay. So supervised machine learning models are nothing but which are having class labels. Okay. So a simple example that I can give you right now is that we have already seen the Titanic dataset. So I have told you the dataset is containing one feature called as survived. So that survived is nothing but it's a Boolean value, 1 or 0. 1 indicates that the passenger has survived. 0 indicates that the passenger has not survived. So when a dataset is having certain features, and along with the features, you are also telling what is the class label. Okay. Here the class label is nothing but that survived parameter, whether the person has survived or not. Okay. So if the datasets are containing such kind of class labels, then it is called as a supervised. So what is basically supervised in the sense, we are trying to teach the model along with the class label. So what do we mean by that? It's like we are telling if these are the features, if these are the parameters of a particular passenger, he has survived. If these are the parameters of a particular passenger, he has not survived. Like that, we are giving him so many sample data, okay, and we are trying to train the machine learning model that see for different feature sets, this is what is actually the result. Like that, we are training the model along with the class label. Okay. So but please understand, only during the training phase we will give the class label. Okay. When we want to test our model, we will not give a class label, we will just give the features, we will just give the attributes, and we will ask the machine learning model, tell me now what is the prediction of this particular features, whether he will survive or whether he will not survive. Okay. So that is called as a supervised learning models. Now unsupervised learning models are nothing but like clustering mechanisms. Okay. So for example, when your teacher or your faculty ask you, okay, guys, I'm going to give you a case study or a project. Now please form groups of 4 so that she will assign one topic to each group. Okay. So what you guys generally do is that you try to choose your friends. That is one parameter maybe. Okay. Or if you are a good student, what you can do is like you can choose your group in such a way that all the members in the group are like-minded. What do I mean by like-minded? In the sense like all the group members wants to work in the same area. Okay. So if you can form groups like that, it is also easy for the faculty to assign you the respective case studies, right? So depending on each and every group's strength, she or he can give actually a particular topic to that particular group, right? So in this particular example, when you are trying to group yourself with your friends, so what is the parameter that you have considered is that you are trying to consider the likes of each and every member. Okay. Maybe you are asking each and every member to write down, okay, what are all the areas that he or she good in. So based on that, you will form a group, right? So here, if you see in this example, there is no as such a class label, but what you're trying to do is like, depending on the like-mindedness of each and every person, you're just grouping them together. Okay. So basically what you're trying to do is like you're trying to do a clustering mechanism, right? Another best example that I can give you right now in this scenario is that you're all hearing news about the COVID-19 thing. So if you carefully observe the news, you can always hear that um, the virus spread which is happening. Okay. The government officials generally do a clustering on top of that. Clustering in the sense, okay, um, if let's say some 100 people have been affected by a particular source, in the sense by a particular source person here. What do you do is like you cluster all those guys together into a single cluster. The reason is being that that particular source person who has actually transmitted the disease will become the centroid kind of, because he is the source, and other fellows who got affected by him also will join that particular cluster. So you, what you're trying to do is like you're trying to basically cluster the victims so that it is easy for you to understand, okay, who got affected by which source. Okay, so that is one of the important applications of clustering, and it is also unsupervised machine learning algorithm. Okay, so the third category is that semi-supervised algorithm, which is nothing but a combination of the first two. So partially the data will have class labels and partially the data will not have class labels. Okay. And one of the important topics that is right now currently under good amount of research is being done in this particular area, which is nothing but reinforcement learning. Okay. So one of the best examples that I can give you is like, I know that many people will have this habit of playing games in online, right? So you know, many games have this kind of pattern. For example, you do something, you get a reward. You do another action, you might lose your life, or you might lose some points or coins or something, right? So depending on the step, so depending on the action that you take, you might be rewarded or you might be given a penalty, right? So those types of algorithms are called as reinforcement learning algorithms. Okay, and this reinforcement learning algorithm is like very, very important because one of the best examples that I can give you for this category is that Google self-driving cars. Okay, so Google self-driving cars is absolutely reinforcement learning because depending on the decision that the Google AI takes, okay, the AI will be either awarded some points or anything, okay, or it will be given a penalty. Okay, now don't ask me like what is the reward or the penalty that you generally give. It can be in terms of anything. Okay, it can be in terms of some kind of a weight, some kind of a, you know, negative weight, right? So one of the best examples is Google self-driving car, and this reinforcement learning is like in the cutting edge research right now. Okay, so these are the different types of algorithms that we have in machine learning. Now looking quickly at the differences between supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Okay, so in supervised learning, I give an input like this. I give a set of apples and I'm telling that, okay, these are the apples. Okay, so what do we mean by that is like we are giving the input data, along with that we are also telling the answer. Okay, we are also telling the label, class label, and then we are giving it to the model. Okay, so now the model will understand that, okay, this is an apple. Okay, now when I give a new input, and the new input is also something similar to the input that this model has already seen, so based on that it will do a prediction and it will classify it as apple. Okay, so that is a supervised learning algorithm. Okay, now coming to the unsupervised learning algorithm, I give a set of data. Okay, I give a set of data, but I am not giving any labels. Okay, I'm not giving any labels. So when I give you a set of fruits like this and I ask you, okay, now please segregate these fruits, so what is the first thing that comes to your mind is that, okay, let's segregate the fruits first based on the color. Okay, now maybe next step, I want to segregate the fruits based on the shape. Okay, or I want to segregate the fruits based on the texture, right? So when I do that, I can my mind will say that, okay, these are all the fruits which are looking alike, so put it into a different basket, and these are all the fruits which are looking alike, so put it into a different basket. So here in this particular model, what are we trying to do is that we are not giving any class label, but still the model is in a position to cluster them into different groups based on some attributes. So the attributes can be something like color, size, texture, shape, and etc. Okay, so that's called as a unsupervised learning model. So all your clustering mechanisms, okay, all your clustering mechanisms, your recommendation systems, okay, all your recommendation systems will fall into the category of unsupervised learning. So why am I saying recommendation systems is also some kind of an unsupervised learning algorithm? Is simple that you often see in Amazon that when you buy a particular phone, immediately you will get some suggestions like, okay, buy a screen guard and buy a back cover, or buy a particular model headset and so on, right? You get some suggestions. So why is it happening? So what is basically happening in the background is that depending on the user buying pattern, okay, depending on the user buying pattern, so Amazon people will actually cluster certain items together, okay. So whenever you buy a particular item, okay, whenever you particularly buy an item, what I can do is like I can recommend the other items which are almost near to the same cluster, or which previous users have already bought together, okay. So if we can put all of them together, what is the advantage is that when a particular user buys a particular item, immediately I can also suggest different items to him, okay. So that's how exactly your recommendation systems are actually working, okay. But of course your recommendation systems are again having different classifications, like content based and collaborative based and hybrid based, which is a little bit out of scope for our particular series right now, but yeah, we will definitely touch upon that also. Okay, now coming to the first one, supervised learning algorithms, okay. So these are classification algorithms. So they are having a discrete output, okay. So for example, telling whether a particular web page is actually a phishing web page or not phishing web page, whether it is going to rain tomorrow or it is not going to rain, so whether the Titanic passenger will survive or he will not survive, okay. It is like basically a binary one, it's going to be a binary one, so it's a zero or one classification, okay. So is classification algorithms always predict binary outputs? So the answer is no, okay. It need not be a binary classification always, okay. You can have multiple classes, okay. So for example, if I say that let's say in the music itself, like I said earlier, if these are the particular notes that have been used and these are the instruments that have been used, I'll say that this is belonging to jazz. Or if these are the other musical notes that have been used, I will say that this is nothing but a pop music. And these are the music notes that have been used, and I can say it is a rock music. Like that, I can have even multiple classifications also, okay. So but one thing that you have to understand is data will contain features as well as the class labels, okay. So what are features and labels? Like I said, features are nothing but the attributes based on which you are trying to differentiate, okay. Now what is the label? Label is nothing but the output, okay. So under the supervised learning itself, we have something called as a regression algorithms also, okay. So the regression algorithms are nothing but the continuous output in the sense, the output of a regression algorithm is nothing but a number, okay. It's not just a discrete output, that means like a 0 or 1 or so on so on so, but it's going to be a number. For example, the example can be the same thing that we have seen earlier, okay. House price prediction, okay. House price prediction. So if somebody is asking you, okay, what will be the approximate cost of this house? You are going to tell him a number, right? Like for example, 80 lakhs or 85 lakhs or something like that. So regression models are actually a continuous output. Okay. So I've given some examples here. So rainfall, what will be the approximate rainfall tomorrow, and earthquake intensity, like on the scale of 6 or 6.5 or 4.5 or 5, what will be the earthquake intensity, and house prices, like I said, and predicting the doctor fee and other stuff. Okay. So data will contain features as well as class labels here also. Like I said, the housing broker, let's say, depending on the features of the house and the locality of the house, he has an estimate of that particular cost, right? So that's nothing but the class label. The estimate that he has about that particular house is nothing but the class label. Okay. But the labels that we have are numerical values. Like I said, okay, if these are the features, the house cost will be around 80 lakhs. And if these are the features, the house cost will be around 1 crore. Like that, we have certain numerical values. Okay. So examples of linear regression algorithms are something like this. Okay. Examples of supervised learning are something like this. Okay. Linear regression. Okay. Logistic regression. Okay. Please understand, linear regression alone is a regression algorithm, whereas from logistic regression onwards, everything is a classification algorithm. Okay. So logistic regression, though the name says it's regression, okay, logistic regression basically uses a probability to say whether it is belonging to a particular class or not. Okay. So it is a classification algorithm. And similarly, naive Bayes is purely based on the Bayes theorem, and it's also a probabilistic model to classify data. Okay. Similarly, KNN stands for K nearest neighbors. Okay, we will talk about this later. And decision tree algorithms, support vector machine algorithms, random forest algorithms, etc. All these things will belong to the supervised learning category. and all of them are used for classification. Okay. Now coming to the second one, the second category is that unsupervised learning algorithms. Okay, so all your clustering algorithms will belong to the unsupervised learning algorithms because they don't have any label. Okay, so depending on the features and attributes, you may have to categorize them. Okay, so clusters or groups the data based on some measure, usually distance measure like Euclidean. Okay, it need not be always Euclidean. Okay, but one of the common and fundamental measure that you generally take is a Euclidean. So I hope all of you know what is a Euclidean distance. It is nothing but distance between 2 points, right? Distance between 2 points. So what are some of the examples? Examples are like this. Okay, k-means clustering with k, where k is the number of centroids, and association analysis. Okay, this is what exactly I was talking about. Association analysis is nothing but your recommendation systems. Okay, how one product is actually associated with another product. Okay, and we have something called as a priori algorithms and agglomerative clustering. These are little advanced topics, right? And reinforcement learning, like I said, depending on the reward or penalty that a machine learning algorithm gets when it does an action. Okay, so one of the best examples is that robot path planning. Okay, robot path planning is a very good example because let's say a robot is actually moving in a particular maze in order to find its way out. Okay, and whenever it kinds of take a decision, it may end up in a dead state, right? Dead state in the sense dead end. Okay, it cannot go further. So what will it understand? It will understand that, okay, because of the decision that it has taken earlier, it has ended up in a dead state. So now what will it do? It will take it as a penalty, go back and try to find a better way, which will be a correct path. Okay, so like that, even a robot path planning and self-driving cars, everything works on the concept of reinforcement learning. Okay, so we'll stop here this session because the call is going to drop now. We'll start with linear regression when you join back.